How do you define what it is about a song that grabs you? I get asked those types of questions all the time about my musical influence and stuff. I have no idea. You know, it's anything you get into when you're a musician, you're kind of like, well, what? I love that. What influenced that? Who was that guy listening to? And you just sort of keep going back. Hey there, my name's Chris Shiflett. I am a guitar player, as you can see here. I play guitar in the Foo Fighters, and I'm out here in New Orleans on tour with my solo band. You can see here's all our gear, getting ready to play tonight, opening up for Blackberry Smoke. And I'm here today to talk about the 5 riffs that changed my life. I went through my record collection today and just thought about what are some pivotal riffs that really influenced me as a guitar player and as a music lover and as a musician, and set me down the path that I remain on today. So I'm going to start with a riff from one of my favorite bands of all time, maybe my favorite band, the Rolling Stones. This is a song called Shattered. When I was a little kid, when I was like 7 years old, late 70s, this record came out, and it was just one of those records that you could not get away from, and you didn't want to get away from. It was just everybody's parents had this on their stereo, and my brothers had it, and we just listened to it all the time. So I'm going to start with Shattered by the Rolling Stones. Goes a little something like this. See there? Nice, simple riff. You know, so many of the Stone songs are like, you know, you can grasp them even when you're just starting out on guitar, and they just sound great. And that's a song I've always wanted to cover. I don't know if I've ever covered that song, but I always wanted to get it in the set. So look for it. Might get into the set here soon. We'll see. That song in particular is, you know, I love the guitar tone on it. Outside of just the song itself, it's got that cool phaser and like slap on it, and just always stuck in my head. I just love it. Okay, another band that was a gigantic influence on me when I was a little kid, thanks again to my older brothers and their record collections, was of course Kiss. Kiss, one of the big reasons I ever picked up a guitar in the first place. I used to have Kiss posters plastered all over my walls in my bedroom, and you know, wore out all their records. And then eventually my kids wore out all their records too, so I passed that on to the next generation. But this is, I don't know if this is like the first, it definitely was not the first Kiss riff that I ever heard, but it's one of their stickiest riffs. It's a classic. I'm gonna go with Detroit Rock City. You know, one of the highlights of my rock and roll life was a few years ago at Dave's birthday party at the Forum. He called up Paul Stanley and got him to come play a couple of Kiss songs with us at the Forum, which is like the site of Kiss Alive 2. And we did Detroit Rock City at that show, and it was like, you know, every childhood fantasy I ever had came true that night for sure. I even got to play the guitar solo. Let's see if I can remember. Detroit Rock City. Come on. My next song, okay, so my older brother Mike was he was and is still a gigantic Ritchie Blackmore fan. All the different things that Ritchie Blackmore has done over the years. Of course, Deep Purple, and then after Deep Purple, he had a great band called Rainbow that introduced the world to Ronnie James Dio, who's probably still my favorite rock and roll singer of all time. And Ritchie Blackmore had endless riffs. The guy had, I mean, you know, he wrote Smoke on the Water, so that tells you something about Ritchie Blackmore and his riffs. But I didn't want to go with that one. I went with Long Live Rock and Roll, because this is probably, I think, my favorite Rainbow record. Really, my favorite Rainbow song is probably Kill the King, but this one seemed more riffy and more appropriate to what we're doing right here. So I'm going to go with Long Live Rock and Roll by Rainbow. That's my loose, sloppy version of Long Live Rock and Roll. That's Long Live Rock and Roll as if it was played by Keith Richards. That's what I'm going to go with. I love Ritchie Blackmore, but I could never play the way he did. He's a god to me. And my next riff that I would like to play is by one of my favorite bands, a band that really, literally, like, kind of changed my musical life, because I think it was like around like 1988 or so. This band put out a record called Suffer, one of my favorite bands of all time, Bad Religion. This record like totally changed punk rock. I think it was the first time that I was ever like listening to current punk rock music. Everything else was like I was listening to like stuff put out in 1978 in like 1988. So I kind of missed the boat on that early stuff, but I didn't miss the boat on this, and I love it, and it changed my life. And this song is called You Are the Government. Like most of their riffs, it's power chords, you know, played fast, and it's all super melodic, and, you know, it's all kind of minor key. All their music had like a wordy sadness to it, and it was just aggressive, and it just, I don't know, you know, punk rock at that time was not really something I was interested in. It was a lot of that crossover kind of metal, you know, hardcore punk rock stuff that was not really for me. I always kind of gravitated more to the melodic stuff, which is why I loved, like, you know, the more sort of early punk rock bands and stuff that I missed out on. And so that was like, that changed the game. And really, like, you know, I think Fat Mike from NoFX has talked a lot about, like, he sort of took that record and Lifestyles of the Rich Kids on LSD and sort of like fused those two sounds, and that was sort of the genesis of what NoFX did, and, you know, all the bands that came afterwards, you know, Lagwagon, No Use for a Name, Good Riddance, all the bands that were sort of around that scene at that time, I think were hugely influenced by Suffer. Okay, so my last riff, I don't even know if this qualifies as a riff, but I'm just going to throw it in there because I wanted to touch on some country stuff. And, you know, I always loved rockabilly, and I got into all the alt country stuff, you know, in the 90s, and that led me to older classic honky-tonk type of country music. And I remember I asked a good friend of mine, like, I don't know anything about old country, but I love it when I hear it, you know, and what should I get into? What should I listen to? What's a good starting point? And he told me Buck Owens and Merle Haggard. He said, get the box sets, Buck Owens and Merle Haggard. And I did that, and just listen. I just wore them out and listened to them to death and just tried to soak it up. And then I had a band called Chris Shiflett and the Dead Peasants there for a little while, and we did a covers record, and we just played old honky tonk covers for a few years, and it was really fun. I'd never tried to actually play that music before, and it sounds so easy and it's so fucking hard, you know. But I remember we got down this song by Merle Haggard called "The Bottle Let Me Down." And there's a part at the beginning that's like a steel part, and then it goes into a guitar part, and I worked that out back then. I'm going to try to play it now, but I'm going to pretend that this is a riff. It's more like a lead, but whatever. My Merle Haggard pedal steel into a Telecaster lead section riff. It's one of the things I love about old country music and Merle and Buck and all those cats is a lot of the simplicity in the structure of their songwriting. That song's got 2 chords in it, and it's beautiful and it sticks in your head. And you know, some of my favorite country songs are like that. You know, or maybe 1 verse and a chorus, or whatever. Merle did that a lot. That's a great tune. It's a great tune to play in a bar room, that's for sure.